Have you ever found yourself sitting at the kitchen table staring at your phone, wondering when was the last time your son or daughter called, really called, not just a quick "what's up" text or a rushed birthday message? Maybe you've offered to help with something, given advice from the heart, only to be brushed off like your opinion doesn't matter anymore. You love your kids deeply, there's no question about that. But lately, something just feels off. You're not alone in feeling that way. As we get older, life shifts. We slow down a little, the house gets quieter, and the kids become adults with lives of their own. But that doesn't mean we stop being parents. It doesn't mean we stop deserving respect. And yet, many parents over 60 find themselves feeling overlooked, dismissed, or even taken for granted by the very people they poured their lives into raising. That's what we're going to talk about today. Not because we want to dwell on hurt feelings, but because it's important. You are important. And recognizing the signs when something isn't right is the first step to restoring a relationship that still has plenty of life left in it. Because it's never too late for healthy, respectful connection. So, let's talk. Let's have an honest, heart-to-heart conversation about the signs your kids may not be showing you the respect you deserve, and what that really means. One of the first signs, and probably the most subtle, is when they stop listening to you. I don't mean they disagree with your opinion. That's normal. What I mean is, you can tell they're not even hearing your words. You're speaking, but their eyes are on their phone, their mind is somewhere else, and when you finish talking, they either change the subject or respond with something like, "Yeah, I know." And you're left wondering, did they even hear what I just said? That hurts, doesn't it? When we were raising them, we listened to their every little worry. We celebrated their first steps, kissed their scraped knees, listened to their endless stories about school, friends, cartoons. We soaked up every word because it mattered to them, so it mattered to us. But now, somehow, your words don't hold that same weight in their world. And while it's natural for adult children to grow independent, it's not okay for them to make you feel invisible. Listening is one of the simplest ways to show someone they matter. When your child no longer listens, not really, it's a quiet but powerful signal that they may not be valuing your wisdom or your presence the way they used to. And that can open the door to resentment and distance if it's not addressed. Another sign is when they start treating your time like it's less important than theirs. Think about this. How often do you rearrange your plans, wait around, or adjust your day just to be available for them? Maybe they said they'd drop by and you waited all afternoon, but they never showed up. Or you asked if they could help with something, and they said, maybe later, only for later to never come. And when you bring it up, you get told you're being dramatic or too sensitive. Time is one of the most precious things we have as we get older. You've worked hard, raised your family, and earned the right to enjoy peace, comfort, and meaningful moments. Your time should not be treated like it's disposable. When your child repeatedly cancels, shows up late without notice, or only reaches out when it's convenient for them, it sends a message, intentional or not, that your time isn't valuable to them. That's a tough pill to swallow, but it's important to see it for what it is. Respect is shown in how we honor each other's time, no matter the age or role in the family. And then there's the tone of voice, the way they speak to you. It's easy to miss this one at first because it often slips in casually, like little sighs of annoyance, sarcastic remarks, or eye rolls during a conversation. But over time, it grows. Suddenly you're feeling like everything you say is wrong or outdated. They correct you in front of others or mock your suggestions. It feels less like a family talk and more like a performance, where they're the star and you're the out-of-touch extra. Let me tell you something. Age does not equal irrelevance. You have decades of lived experience, of hardship, of problem-solving, of learning through failure and triumph. You've seen things they haven't yet and probably never will. That deserves respect, not ridicule. If your child is consistently speaking to you in a way that makes you feel small, like you're being scolded or mocked rather than heard and understood, that's not a generational gap. That's a respect gap. and it needs to be acknowledged. Sometimes the disrespect shows up not in what they say, but in what they don't say. Have you ever found out about big life events, moves, job changes, engagements, through social media or from someone else? Maybe they got a new promotion and never told you, or made a big decision and didn't think to ask your thoughts, not even out of courtesy. It's not that you want to control their lives, you don't. You just want to be included. You want to feel like your presence still matters, like you're still part of their inner circle. Being excluded from important conversations or milestones is another way that respect erodes. It suggests that your opinion doesn't carry weight anymore, that your feelings aren't worth the consideration. And while they may not mean to hurt you, the result is the same. You feel pushed to the sidelines. That ache in your chest, that quiet sting when you learn something late or not at all, it's real. And it deserves to be felt, not dismissed. Now, these things don't always happen loudly. Sometimes the signs are quiet, easy to brush off, easy to excuse. Oh, they're just busy. They don't mean it that way. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But when these moments start to add up, when you feel a knot in your stomach more often than a smile on your face when they call, it's time to pause. Not to get angry, but to get clear. Clear about what you need. Clear about how you want to be treated. Clear about what respect actually looks like at this stage in your life. Because here's the truth. You are not asking for too much by expecting respect. You are not being difficult for wanting to be heard, valued, and included. These are basic needs. And when our children, the people we've loved and nurtured and sacrificed for, start to neglect those needs, it's okay to speak up. It's okay to expect better. There's so much more to talk about, and we're going to keep going, because recognizing these signs is just the beginning. Understanding them and knowing what to do about them is where the real change starts. Now, let's keep going. You've probably spent most of your life giving your time, your love, your money, your support. That's what parents do. We give. And we don't expect a medal or a thank you note every day. But there comes a point, especially later in life, when you begin to notice the imbalance, not because you want to stop giving, but because you start to realize how little is being given back. One of the clearest signs of that imbalance is when your kids only call or visit when they need something. Maybe it's a favor, maybe it's money, or maybe it's just someone to vent to. But after they've gotten what they wanted, they're gone again. Days or weeks go by without a word. And when you try to reach out just to chat or check in, they're suddenly too busy or distracted. It's a hard truth, but it needs to be said. When your children only reach out during times of need and disappear the rest of the time, they're treating you like a resource, not a relationship. And you deserve more than that. You're not just a backup plan. You're not a free therapist, a part-time babysitter, or a 24-hour ATM. You're their parent. You're a whole person with thoughts and feelings and stories and love to give and love to receive. The relationship should never be one way. It may not always be perfectly balanced. Life happens, we understand that. But if the pattern is consistent, if you feel used more than appreciated, that's a clear sign of disrespect. Not necessarily out of malice, but out of neglect. And that hurts just the same. Let's talk about money for a moment, because that's another sensitive but telling area. Have you ever felt pressured, directly or indirectly, to give financially, even when it didn't feel quite right? Maybe your kids assume you'll foot the bill for dinner, or that you'll help out with their car payment just this once, but it becomes a regular thing. And when you finally say no, or even hesitate, you're met with guilt, silence, or even anger. That's not how love should work. You've likely worked hard your whole life. You've saved, sacrificed, and planned for retirement, for peace, maybe even a little travel or freedom after years of raising a family. You shouldn't feel guilty for setting financial boundaries. You shouldn't feel ashamed for saying, "I can't help this time," or even, "I just don't want to." That's your right. When your child respects you, they respect your no. They understand that love isn't measured by your wallet. But if every interaction feels like it comes with a price tag, or if your kindness is only acknowledged when it's convenient, that's not respect. That's conditional love, and you deserve better than that. Another sign that your child may not be respecting you comes when they try to parent you. Now, this one can be tricky. As we age, sometimes roles do shift a little. Maybe they help you get to the doctor or manage bills online. That's love. That's care. But there's a difference between helping out and treating you like you've lost your ability to think for yourself. Have you ever made a decision, maybe about your house, your health, your lifestyle, and been met with criticism, not conversation? Maybe they roll their eyes when you say you want to keep driving, or they tell you what to eat, what not to eat, how to live your day, and they're not asking, they're telling. It can start to feel like you're the child again, and that can be deeply frustrating. You've made it through decades of life. You've raised children, navigated challenges, solved problems, loved fiercely, worked hard. That wisdom doesn't vanish just because some gray hairs show up. Your children may mean well, they may be trying to protect you. But when that protection comes without respect, without discussion, without honoring your independence and dignity, it crosses a line. You're not helpless. You're not incapable. And if there are things you need help with, that help should come with kindness, not control. This shift can happen so slowly that you don't even realize it at first. Maybe it starts with little comments. Are you sure you should be doing that? Or, let me handle that, you don't need to worry about it. And yes, sometimes those words come from love. But when they start to stack up, when you're being shut down more than lifted up, you start to feel like your voice is fading in your own life. That's not okay. Respect means being included in your own decisions. It means your input matters, even if they disagree. It means your independence is honored, not managed like a task list. You deserve to be seen not just as someone to take care of, but as someone who still matters. Another moment that stings, one many older parents feel but rarely talk about, is when your accomplishments, your history, your life is dismissed. You tell a story from your younger days and they wave it off with a quick, "Yeah, you've told that before." Or they glance at their phone while you're talking about something that really mattered to you. You share a photo, a memory, a hard-earned lesson, and you're met with silence, or worse, sarcasm. That's painful. It's like the life you lived, the sacrifices, the achievements, the struggles, don't matter anymore. But they do. They absolutely do. And anyone who truly respects you would want to hear those stories. They'd ask questions, they'd smile, they'd thank you for sharing. Your past is rich with meaning. You've been through eras, milestones, moments of change that shaped the very foundation your children now walk on. That deserves attention, not dismissal. And here's something else to consider. If you start to feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells around your kids, that may be another sign. You hold back opinions. You avoid certain topics. You shrink your voice because you don't want to be seen as difficult, outdated, or out of touch. But that shrinking? That's not love. That's fear. And fear doesn't belong in a healthy family. You should never feel like you have to make yourself smaller just to keep peace with your children. Respect means space for honest conversation. It means your voice is welcome, even when there's disagreement. It means love without silence, boundaries without punishment, and connection without walking on glass. And that brings us to something deeply emotional, maybe the hardest to admit, when your love starts to feel one-sided. You send birthday cards, you call to check in, you show up at events, you remember the little things, and you're met with short replies, missed calls, or worse, nothing at all. You find yourself wondering, did I do something wrong? Why do I feel like a burden just for caring? Let me pause and tell you this. You didn't do anything wrong by loving your children. You raised them with everything you had, and that effort deserves to be returned, not ignored. If the warmth has faded, if the love feels cold, If the connection has turned into obligation, that's a sign something is broken. And pretending it's not won't fix it. But naming it, seeing it clearly, that's the beginning of something better. Not because you want to guilt your children, but because you want to reclaim your own worth, your own voice, your own peace. And you deserve that. Let's continue. So here you are, sitting with all these feelings that have built up quietly over the years. Maybe you've brushed them aside before, told yourself, they're just busy, it's not a big deal, they don't mean it that way. But now, something inside you is beginning to stir. A little voice saying, wait a minute, I deserve better than this. And that voice? That's not bitterness. That's clarity. Let's talk about one last sign, one that often gets overlooked because it doesn't always look like disrespect on the surface. It's when your child makes you feel like you're lucky to have them, instead of the other way around. Now this one can feel confusing at first. You might think, well, of course I'm lucky. I love my children. I'm proud of who they've become. And that's beautiful. But there's a difference between feeling grateful for your family and feeling like you constantly have to prove you're worthy of their attention. Maybe you've noticed that the relationship always seems to revolve around their life, their schedules, their needs, their problems, and yours. Well, those get brushed aside, delayed, or ignored. If you ask for help, you feel like a burden. If you share a concern, you feel like a complainer. If you speak up, you feel like the drama maker. That's not mutual love. That's imbalance. Respectful relationships, especially between parents and adult children, shouldn't feel like you're constantly earning your place. You shouldn't feel lucky to get a phone call once a month, or grateful for the occasional visit that's squeezed in between other plans. Your presence is not a favor they're doing for you. It's a privilege for them to still have you in their life. And if they've forgotten that, it doesn't mean you're wrong for wanting more. It means they've lost sight of something deeply important, and it's okay to remind them. Because here's what happens when you start setting clear boundaries, when you stop excusing disrespect, when you begin carrying yourself with calm, quiet strength. Everything changes. Not overnight, but gradually. Sometimes your children step up. They listen. They adjust. They start to see what they've been taking for granted. And sometimes they don't. At least not right away. But you change. You stop bending yourself into someone else's mold. You stop shrinking your presence to make others comfortable. You start honoring your time, your voice, and your worth, even if no one else is clapping for it. That's where real respect begins. This doesn't mean you need to cut anyone out of your life. It's not about revenge or silence or teaching someone a lesson through absence. It's about presence, your presence. Being fully present with who you are and what you need, and allowing that truth to guide how you show up in the relationships that matter most. You can love your kids deeply and still expect to be treated with kindness. You can forgive the past and still draw healthy boundaries. You can be the steady heart of your family without letting yourself be pushed aside. And maybe, just maybe, this is the moment where something shifts for you, where you stop hoping things will change on their own and start living with intention, where you speak not from anger, but from wisdom, where you remind your family, not just with words, but with your actions, that your love is strong, but it's not a free pass for disregard. So what do you do now? You don't have to stage a dramatic intervention. You don't have to send a long email listing everything that's gone wrong. Sometimes it starts with small steps. Saying no when it doesn't feel right. Speaking up gently but firmly when you're talked down to. Asking to be heard, not because you're demanding anything, but because you matter. Respect is a two-way street. It's built in the little moments. The eye contact during conversation. The calls that come just to say hello. The thank yous that come unprompted. The space to be human, to be vulnerable, to be whole, even when you're not perfect. And if that's something your child has lost sight of, let them see you model it. Let them feel the calm strength of someone who knows their worth. Because whether they're 25 or 55, you're still their parent. And deep down, they still need your example. Maybe more now than ever. You don't need to carry the weight of resentment. You don't need to keep swallowing the hurt just to keep the peace. You've earned more than that. Through years of love, of effort, of showing up. And if you've been quietly wondering if anyone else feels this way, yes, they do. You are not alone. There are thousands of other parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, people in their 60s, 70s, and beyond who have been feeling the same quiet ache, the same longing to be seen, heard, and valued. This video, this conversation, it's for you. It's a reminder that your feelings are valid, that your presence still matters, that your wisdom still shines. And if something in this resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Share your experience in the comments. What has your journey been like with your kids? Have you noticed these signs? How have you handled it? Let's build a space where we support one another, where we talk about the hard stuff with honesty and heart. Because when we come together, we don't just share pain, we share strength. We remind each other that life is still full of joy, meaning, and connection when we choose it. And if you found this video helpful, go ahead and click the like button. It helps us reach more people who need this message. And don't forget to subscribe to Strong Elderly Life for more thoughtful, uplifting conversations just like this one. Here's to standing tall in your truth, to being heard, valued, and respected at any age. You deserve that. You always have. And we're with you every step of the way.